Be careful what you wish for, because the first car on this list already makes modern performance cars look like overcomplicated gym memberships. And the last one? The last one is the kind of machine that makes mechanics smile the way chefs smile when they see a perfect knife. Every few years, the used car market does something borderline irrational. Not, oops, I mispriced this irrational. No. I'm talking full on. Let's collectively ignore an entire category of cars like they just texted us hey at 2 a.m. irrational. And right now, naturally aspirated, rear-wheel drive sports cars are sitting on lots across America like last season's fashion, completely overlooked, deeply misunderstood, and criminally underpriced. Welcome back to Old Man Garage, where we don't chase trends. We laugh at them while buying their leftovers for half price. Here's the situation. A brand new BMW 330i starts at about $46,000. Turbocharged 2.0-liter engine, 255 horsepower, and just enough sensors to panic if you sneeze too hard. And sure, it's quick. It's refined. It's also the kind of car that 10 years from now will need a therapist and a software update just to idle correctly. Meanwhile, sitting quietly across the country are cars with naturally aspirated engines, proper rear-wheel drive, real manual transmissions, and engineering that doesn't require a laptop and a prayer to maintain. Cars that were built when driving feel wasn't an optional subscription package. And today on Old Man Garage, we're looking at 3 of them. 3 sports cars currently hiding in plain sight, all under $15,000, all built with philosophies that modern cars politely forgot. And all of them asking one simple question: do you actually want to drive, or do you just want to commute faster? Let's start with the one that delivers more power than common sense, and somehow still manages to be the most underrated of the Infiniti G37 Coupe. Now, before you roll your eyes and go, oh great, a fancy Nissan, hold on, because this is where things get interesting. A brand new G37 Coupe, back in 2008 to 2013, would set you back anywhere from about $36,000 to just over $40,000, depending on how deep you went into the options list. Leather, Bose sound system, heated seats, the whole I just got promoted package. Today, clean examples are sitting between $7,500 and $13,000. That's not depreciation, that's a financial collapse with leather seats. And what you get for that price is honestly a little ridiculous. 3.7 liters, naturally aspirated V6, 328 horsepower, no turbo, no supercharger, no please wait while boost builds. Just throttle response so immediate it feels like the car is slightly offended you even asked. This is the VQ37 VHR engine, and if you've spent any time around mechanics, you'll notice something weird when this engine comes up. They don't complain. They don't sigh. They don't say, yeah, but they just kind of nod. Respectfully. Like someone just mentioned a perfectly cooked steak. Because this engine didn't just perform well, it won Ward's 10 best engines multiple times. Not once. Not, hey, good job this year. Multiple years, against turbocharged, more complex, more modern competition. And it kept winning for one simple reason. It worked exceptionally well, consistently, without drama. There are documented examples of these engines going past 200,000 miles. Not rebuilt, not babied, just maintained like a normal car. Oil changes, basic care, nothing exotic, which in today's world of sealed-for-life transmissions that absolutely do not last for life, feels almost suspiciously honest. And let's talk about how it actually drives, because numbers are one thing, but this car was built on the same FM platform as the Nissan 370Z. That means double wishbone front suspension, multi-link rear, and a weight distribution sitting around 52 to 48. In normal human terms, it feels planted, predictable, and just aggressive enough to remind you that yes, this is still a sports coupe, not a luxury couch with a license plate. 0 to 60 happens in about 5.4 seconds, which, for something you can buy for the price of a slightly used economy car, is borderline disrespectful to the concept of budgeting. And yet, people ignore it. Why? Because in 2008, everyone was too busy paying attention to the G35, the 350Z, and whatever BMW was doing at the time. The G37 showed up, quietly improved everything, and the market basically said, cool story, and moved on. It's like bringing a perfectly grilled burger to a party where everyone is arguing about sushi. Now, quick reality check before you go out and buy one and text me, you ruined my life. Higher mileage examples can consume oil. Not catastrophic, not run away, but noticeable. You check it regularly, you use good synthetic oil, and you move on like an adult. The VVEL system, Infiniti's variable valve timing, also likes clean oil. Neglect maintenance and it will remind you, loudly. So service history is not optional here. It's the entire decision. Transmission fluid? If there's no record, change it. It's about $100 and saves you from future regret. And always, always, get a pre-purchase inspection. $150 to avoid buying someone else's bad decisions is the best deal in the automotive world. But if you find a clean one, documented, maintained, not modified by someone named Kyle with a YouTube channel and a dream. You're getting 328 horsepower rear-wheel drive, a proper chassis, and an engine that refuses to quit for around $11,000. That's not a deal. That's the market making a mistake. And if this is already making you question why people spend $40,000 on something less engaging, just wait until you see what comes next. Because the next car doesn't rely on power at all. It relies on something far more dangerous: balance. If the G37 felt like bringing a sledgehammer to a problem, the next car is a scalpel. Precise, light, and way more dangerous in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing. Now here's where things get funny. Because this car has been misunderstood since day one. Not because it's bad, not because it's slow, but because people expected it to be something it never tried to be. Which, coincidentally, is how most bad decisions in life happen. The Toyota GT86, also known as the Subaru BRZ, and if you were feeling extra rebellious in 2013, the Scion FRS. 3 names, 1 car, 1 very specific idea. Brand new, these cars rolled off the lot somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. Not cheap, not insane. Right in that, I want something fun, but I still need to eat range. Today, you're looking at clean examples between $8,900 and just under $15,000, which means someone else already paid the "I wanted to impress people in 2013" tax, and now you get the engineering for clearance pricing. Now let's address the complaint, the one you've heard, the one that always shows up in forums, comments, and usually from someone who thinks horsepower is a personality trait. It's not fast, correct? It's not, and that's exactly why it's brilliant. Because this car was never designed to win drag races, it was designed to make corners feel illegal. Under the hood is a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated flat-4 engine, the FA20, co-developed by Toyota and Subaru. And when I say co-developed, I don't mean we emailed each other. I mean both companies actually worked together on this thing, which is rare because usually car companies collaborate the same way group projects work in school. One person does everything and the other one says, "we," 200 horsepower. On paper, that sounds fine, nothing crazy. But here's what matters. The engine sits incredibly low in the chassis. Boxer layout, flat, almost hugging the ground like it's afraid of heights. That lowers the center of gravity so much that the entire car feels like it rotates around you, not ahead of you. It's the difference between dancing and tripping over your own feet. 0 to 60 is about 6.4 seconds. Again, not headline grabbing. But this is where people completely miss the point. Because the magic number on this car isn't horsepower, it's balance. 53% front, 47% rear. That's not just good, that's engineers high-fived each other and went home early. Good. And then they did something even more interesting. They didn't give it massive tires. They didn't max out grip. They intentionally kept it a little loose. A little playful. Why? Because they wanted the limit to be reachable. Not, you need a racetrack and a death wish reachable. I'm talking about learning, feeling the car move, understanding what's happening beneath you instead of relying on electronics to quietly fix your mistakes like a helicopter parent. Driving this car the right way feels like you're part of the machine. Driving it the wrong way feels like you're writing a Yelp review about lack of power. And that's why the market got it wrong. People showed up expecting speed. What they got was precision, and instead of adjusting expectations, they walked away and told everyone it was disappointing, which is perfect, because now it's cheap. Now, before you go out and buy one and immediately tell everyone you're into driving dynamics, let's talk about what to actually check. Early FA20 engines had a known cold start oil pressure concern. Not catastrophic, not instant failure, but something you absolutely verify. Check oil level. Look for service records. See if the technical service bulletin work was addressed. This is basic due diligence, not advanced mechanics. Manual transmissions. Synchros can wear, especially second and third gear, on cars that were driven the way they were meant to be driven, enthusiastically. So test every gear. Slowly, then a bit faster. If it complains, you listen. Clutch wear? Normal. Budget for it if the mileage is high. This isn't a flaw, it's just physics doing its job. And again, get an inspection. $150. Same story, same logic, always worth it. But here's the payoff. If you find a clean one, you're getting one of the most balanced, most communicative, most honest driver's cars ever built in this price range. A car that journalists compare to a Porsche Cayman when it launched, not because it was faster, but because it felt right. And that's something spec sheets can't measure. Now, if this car already changed how you think about performance, if you're starting to realize that maybe speed isn't everything, the last car is about to flip the entire conversation again. Because it doesn't rely on power. It doesn't rely on balance. It relies on something even simpler, and somehow, even harder to find today. Purity. If the last car taught you that balance matters more than brute force, this one is about to strip the entire idea of a sports car down to its bare minimum, and somehow make it even more addictive. And here's the part that's almost funny. This is the car people love to make jokes about, right up until they drive one. Then suddenly the jokes stop, the excuses disappear, and they start browsing listings at 2 in the morning like they just discovered a new personality. The Mazda MX-5 Miata NC. Yeah, that Miata. The one your friend said was too small, too slow, or my personal favorite, not a real sports car. Which is interesting because those same people think a 2-ton SUV with a fake exhaust note is fun, so maybe we don't use them as a benchmark for reality. When this car was new, 2006 through 2015, a nicely equipped example would cost somewhere between $23,000 and $29,000. Today, you're looking at $7,000 to about $14,500 for clean examples. That's not depreciation. That's the market collectively forgetting what fun feels like. Now let's talk about what it actually is. 2 seats, rear-wheel drive, naturally aspirated 2.0-liter 4-cylinder, between 158 and 167 horsepower depending on the year. And I know, those numbers look like they belong on a lawnmower brochure. But here's the trick. The Miata doesn't win on power. It wins by removing everything that doesn't matter. This car weighs just over 2,400 pounds. That's it. No excess. No unnecessary bulk. No, we added this feature because marketing said so. Just enough car to do the job and nothing else. So those 160-ish horsepower, they don't feel like 160. They feel alive. Because every input, steering, throttle, brakes, goes directly to the car without passing through a committee of computers first. The steering is hydraulic, real feedback, not simulated, not filtered. You turn the wheel, the car talks back immediately. It's the difference between shaking someone's hand and waving at them through a Zoom call. 0 to 60 happens in about 6.5 seconds, which is basically the same as a lot of turbocharged hot hatches in this price range. But here's the difference. The Miata will do it the same way, every time. No heat soak, no boost fade, no give it a second while the turbo wakes up. Just consistency. And more importantly, it makes you work for it. This is a driver's car in the purest sense. Not because it's difficult, but because it's honest. If you mess up, you know why. If you get it right, you feel like a hero even at legal speeds. That's why driving instructors use these cars. Not because they're cheap, but because they teach. Now let's address the obvious. Yes, it has 2 seats. No, you're not taking 4 friends with you unless 2 of them are imaginary. Yes, it's a convertible. No, it's not ideal if your idea of fun is hauling furniture or impressing people who think horsepower equals personality. And that, right there, is exactly why it's cheap. Because the market prioritized practicality. And in doing so, it accidentally discounted one of the most pure driving experiences you can buy. Now, maintenance. Soft top mechanism? Check it. Cables can wear over time. Not expensive, around $200. But you want to know before you buy, not after it rains inside your car. Coolant service? If there's no record, do it. About $120, non-negotiable. This isn't optional maintenance. This is basic survival. Rear subframe? Inspect it. Especially on higher mileage cars. It's a known wear point, but easy to check and not a deal breaker if caught early. Wheel bearings? Listen for humming at highway speed. If it sounds like your car is quietly complaining about life, that's your clue. And beyond that, oil changes, tires, drive it. That's the whole conversation, because this is a Mazda. And not just any Mazda, a Miata, one of the most documented, proven, thoroughly understood platforms in the automotive world. These engines routinely go past 200,000 miles with basic maintenance, not occasionally, regularly. Which brings us to the bigger picture. 3 cars, 3 completely different philosophies. The G37 said, "Give me power, give me durability, and let me do everything well." The GT86 and BRZ said, "Forget power, give me balance, and let the driver figure the rest out." And the Miata said, "Remove everything unnecessary, and what's left will be enough." And somehow, the market looked at all 3 and said, "Nah, I'll take the crossover." Perfect. Because that's exactly why these cars are still sitting there, waiting for someone who actually understands what they are. Find a clean example, get the inspection, demand service history like you're interrogating a suspect, and if anything feels off, walk away, no hesitation. But when you find the right one, you're not just buying a cheap sports car. You're buying something that was engineered with intention, something that people paid real money for when it was new, something that today costs less, not because it got worse, but because people stopped paying attention. And that's where the opportunity is. If this video made you rethink what $15,000 can actually get you, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm we're doing something right. Subscribe to Old Man Garage, where we don't follow trends, we wait for them to get cheap. And seriously, send this video to that friend who thinks driving is just getting from point A to point B. They need help, because the best car you'll ever own might already be out there, underpriced, ignored, and waiting for someone just smart enough to notice.